Greetings. Welcome to another episode of the Insightful Living channel with myself, Stephen Harvey. Just comes on here to share about a myriad of life challenges in your personal life, your professional life, your romantic life. Okay. I'm a licensed therapist. You can look me up on psychologytoday.com or helptoadjust.com, which is the agency that I currently work with. Okay. So today, I am going to expound on a challenge that comes up not very often, but often enough to indicate to me that it's something that I need to touch on, right? So today we're going to be dealing with how to adequately process the transition or death of a loved one. How to process, handle the transition or death of a loved one. I've had clients who come to me that were suicidal because of guilt, that were very depressed, which is a intense feeling of sadness due to the transition or death of a loved one. All right. So today I just want to give you just some thoughts, just some ways to process this. I also want to, so we're going to start off and I'm going to let you know about the emotions, right? The emotions that we typically may feel when a loved one transitions or dies. And I'm going to also get into why I'm using the word transition versus death, okay? But before that, we're going to talk about the 5 stages of grief or the 5 stages of bereavement. These are in no particular order, but these are typically the emotions we flow in and out of when we experience a loss. So one of these emotions is denial, right? This is when you can't even believe and you're not willing to accept what happened. Like you're almost like in a state of shock to where it's like, no, this can't be. Right? So denial is a state of mind, a state of being that we often experience during the transition of a loved one. All right? So denial. Another state or another emotion that we feel is bargaining. So bargaining is when we say like, oh, well, only if I would have did this. What if I did that? Right? I should have just made this decision. Like we start to think only if we could have or should have done certain things, maybe the outcome would have been different. So bargaining is kind of tied to, guilt a little bit, right? Would have, could have, should have type of thing. So that's bargaining. Okay. Another emotion or state that we may experience with the transition or death of a loved one is anger. Anger is pretty self-explanatory, right? Just feeling angry at the situation. Okay? All right. Another one is depression. Depression, again, is a very intense feeling of sadness. All right. I also define depression as, the thought process of continuously replaying a hurtful experience. That's typically where the intense feeling of sadness comes from. It comes from the constant and continuous replaying over and over in our mind of a hurtful event. So our bodies now react to that mental program, and that's when we feel that intense feeling of sadness, which we call depression. Okay? In the fifth and final stage, and we will go in and out of all of these stages. It's not to say that it's in chronological order. All right? The 5th and final one is acceptance. That's when we accept and we're at peace with what has happened and we are in a place where we are ready to progress forward with our lives. Okay, we're at peace with it. So those are the 5 stages of grief or the 5 stages of bereavement that I want you to know so that you can understand your states, you can understand your emotions. All right, if you were to deal with the transition or death of a loved one. Okay, now I'm going to go into why I say transition or death. All right, because when we talk about perspective, okay, I have to get into this. Okay, I have to get into this. So there are different cultural perspectives of what is looked upon as death. Okay, so first I'm going to give you from a European, Eurocentric perspective. Death is final. So in other words, when a human is gone, right, from their physical body, that's it. They're done forever, right? And then there's typically a belief that they are, go to heaven or hell, and that's it. Okay, so that oftentimes contributes to people's sadness or depression, because they're like, oh wow, my loved one is gone forever, right? And they're gone, they're done, over with, right? So yeah, I can, that's one of the perspectives that have people feeling super depressed, angry. All right, now you hear me use the word transition. So transition, now coming from an African perspective now, all right, in African culture, there is no concept of death, only change, only the changing of forms. Now, actually, on the European side, you have Isaac Newton, who came out and said that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It only changes forms. So that is very African in, from a conceptual standpoint, right? So now when I say transition, that's looking at it from a standpoint of, hey, my loved one is not gone. They did not die. They have just transitioned from one physical form, right, to a different form. We don't know what that form is, but because at the essence of all of us is energy. If you take the strongest magnifying glass that you can find and you put it up to any solid thing, all you will see at its core is a bunch of molecules or atoms vibrating very fast. And if you take one atom, I think an atom is the smallest particle known to man. If you take an atom, 99.9% of it is hollow energy. It's only 0.01 part of an atom that you can actually see. So I just want you to sit with that. Like, all of us, at the core of us, is just energy vibrating at a super fast pace, or vibrating at a certain frequency. All right, quantum physics. Just kind of look at that. I don't want to get too scientific, right? Because we're talking about a very emotional thing here, dealing with transition, dealing with death. But I'm just kind of letting you know. So when we have a loved one, there is a perspective that says, hey, my loved one is not gone. They're still here. They have just now changed forms. So, I'm just kind of giving you the African perspective here, right? We tend to still understand that we can still communicate with our loved one in this different form through dreams, okay? Through keeping them alive in our mind, in our consciousness, okay? Because, now, even the biblical perspective that I like, that says everything that is seen comes from that which is unseen. So all physical comes from the non-physical. So when we have a loved one who's transitioned, if they came from the non-physical anyway, right, we can keep them alive there in the non-physical realm, which is in our mind, thinking of things that they may have said to us, words of wisdom, thinking of jokes, reminiscing on great times that we have. That's how we keep them alive. Yes, we don't have them in the physical, but we can keep them alive through the spiritual. Okay? All right? There is a perspective, all right? And like I said, I'm giving you the African cultural perspective here, just a different perspective. That's not the popular perspective, but I have to give it to you because at the end of the day, I share this perspective with a lot of my clients, and it has often served to be very healing. Okay? So I'm going to share it with you all. So there is a perspective that once a person transitions from their physical form, they may take, so now they're back in the spirit realm. The spirit is just energy. And that energy can hop into different aspects of nature at any given time, even another person. Okay? I'll give you an example. I'll give you examples. All right? So one of my spiritual advisors lost a loved one. And so one time she was on the internet, and for whatever reason, it was a certain meal that popped up on the internet, and she just felt a very intense drawing to this meal and said, I have to have this meal. It was just something about that meal that just had a very intense pulling on her. So she made that meal and she enjoyed it so much, and she called one of her other relatives, and her relatives said, well, that meal, that was your deceased aunt's favorite meal. So then my spiritual advisor in that moment was like, wow, that was probably my connecting with my aunt through food in that moment. That was kind of like that energy I was feeling. That was good energy. Okay? All right? So that's kind of like through food. I tell you another one. I remember a story that I heard one time from Floyd Mayweather, the boxer. Okay? And Floyd talked about his friend, one of his good friends that committed suicide. And Floyd had a certain room for this friend in his mansion. And he said after his friend committed suicide, there was always a moth that was flying around in that room. And it's ironic because in African understanding, there is a belief that oftentimes the deceased, right, shows him or herself through, or reincarnates a little bit, kind of like through the moth. All right, that's just a belief, right? So it was ironic that he said there was a moth that was always flying around in the same room that his friend used to have at his mansion after he committed suicide. The moth was always there. He said he told his maid, don't touch that moth. This is what Floyd said, don't touch that moth. He said it was just something about that moth. He said, don't touch it. Okay, and this particular friend was so excited about Floyd's upcoming fight with Pacquiao. Like, that was his thing. He was super excited and ready, about that fight. And Floyd Mayweather, if you look it up it's somewhere on YouTube, I saw it. He said when he was fighting Manny Pacquiao in the ring, he saw a moth come down and land on Pacquiao's head during that fight. And he believes that was his friend letting him know, hey, I'm here, I'm still out here. Not in the same form that you know me as, but I'm still out here. Okay? I'm gonna share with you another story of how this goes. So we're talking about a loved one who's transitioned or died, and I'm just wanting to present to you a perspective to know that they're still here, but just in a different form, and you have to be open to the different forms that you can still actually commune with, cultivate relationship with your loved one. It's going to be different, yes, but nonetheless, your loved one is still here. Why? Because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It only changes forms. Another story for you. The rapper DMX, who transitioned about a year or two ago, something like that. His good friend Swizz Beatz was on an interview, and they asked Swizz, they said, how you feeling about DMX? How you processing? How are you doing? We know that was your good friend. I think it was the Breakfast Club, okay? And Swizz Beatz said he was really messed up. He said he couldn't hear certain songs anymore because it was really, hitting, it was touching him differently. Couldn't listen to it because he was thinking, oh man, my friend is gone. So now what he said was he had a dream recently, a very vivid dream, where him and DMX, they were play fighting. And he said the dream felt very real. And he said after they was play fighting, DMX just kind of looked at him and just gave him a look. He just said, And Swizz Beatz said when he saw DMX do that in the dream, that was an indicator to him that, hey, you know what? My friend is doing all right. Okay? Even, my father-in-law, right? My mother-in-law said that she had a dream about him, smiling, letting her know, hey, I'm all right. All right. Me, personally, so we're talking about dreams, We're talking about animals. We're talking about food. There are, all of the elements of nature. Nature consists of humans, plants, animals, minerals, right? Natural forces, wind, fire, okay? Thunder, all right? So there's a belief that, an individual that may leave this physical body, that many of you refer to as death, some refer to as transition, meaning that energy is just transitioning out of this physical body, okay, into another body or some other aspect of nature. Excuse me. Okay, so I remember when my father passed away. I didn't grow up with my father. I used to go see him when I was younger, elementary school, middle school, high school. Really, we're not in contact, right? It wasn't any problems, but we just weren't in contact like that. All right, and I remember after he passed, after he transitioned, he came to me in a very vivid dream. It's like he came right up to my face. Like he said, he came right to my face, like as close as you can come to someone's face without actually touching them in the face. And he just told me, I didn't mean for it to be like this, and left. And I just took that as the type of, I guess, maybe distant relationship we had. That wasn't his intention, and he just wanted to just say that, make amends with that, and he just left. Okay, and so that's all. So I'm just sharing that with you all when it comes to your loved one. Another thing that we do, right, in African cultures, we may set up a mural or altar in the home, just somewhere in the home that represented their energy. So if your loved one had a favorite coffee mug, a favorite chair, a favorite book, favorite desk, a favorite seating area they used to be at, we would kind of have that place there with a lot of symbols that represented them, and that would be an area right, that's kind of like a physical or symbolic expression that you are honoring and you are recognizing the presence of your dearly departed. All right, that's kind of like a physical symbol to remind you of your loved one, so that you can keep them alive in your consciousness, right? In that unseen realm that all of the physical things come from, consciousness, right? So that's one thing you can do. It's so deep that, you have a lot of people that even at dinner time serve out a little plate of food for their dearly departed. Again, just as a physical symbol to remind the family of the energy, the presence of that individual, so that we never forget. Okay? So these are different things you can do to remember your dearly departed. Another thing you could, think of, right? I'm just kind of giving you different ways of perceiving, different ways of, that you can think about this, process this, so that you can move forward and be productive with your life. Okay? Because guess what? That's probably what your dearly departed would have wanted for you. They probably would not want you to just wallow in depression, sadness, and anger. They probably would want to see the best for you. So another way you can look at this is, let me live my life in such a way that my family member will be proud. I know what they stood for. I know what he or she would have wanted for me. So let me go ahead and do that, so that I can be assured that wherever they are happy and smiling. And that can bring satisfaction to you. And guess what? It's going to work for you anyway, right? Because you would have now accomplished something, or you would have progressed your life in a certain way. So that's another way you could look at it. Let me honor my dearly departed by living my life in such a way that I'm bringing honor to them. I'm venerating them. I am upholding their legacy, carrying out their intention for me. That's another way you can look at it. Okay? Another way, I'm going to give you another one right now. All right, that I heard from a gentleman who was saying that a lot of times when we have a dearly departed, okay, a lot of times a loved one transitions over to the spiritual realm right before our lives is about to be elevated or ascended into a new chapter, new dimension, new realm. So this individual said, how much of a blessing is it to know that we have a loved one on the other side, on the spiritual side, advocating and supporting us as we move into this new dimension, this new chapter, this new realm of our life. That's another way to look at it. What if, and if you think about it, a lot of times, our loved ones may transition right before we're about to be elevated, right before we're about to go into a new chapter, dimension, or realm of our own life. So they are actually supporting us on the spiritual side of life. Okay? That's another perspective that you can cultivate, adopt to help you properly process the transition of a loved one. I'm going to go back to those 5 stages of grief and bereavement. I want you to be patient with yourself. Yes, do we want to feel that intense sadness or depression or anger or denial? Do we want to feel that bargaining? Oh, if I could have did this. Oh, if I should have did that. It probably would have been different. No, we don't want to feel those emotions. But just be patient with yourself. All right? That's why that saying came, time heals. Be patient. I know you just want to get over it. Or you just want to stop feeling the sadness. Stop feeling the anger. Just have the intention that you will ultimately get past this to be able to move forward with your life. But just be patient with yourself and just identify the emotions, allow them to sit, cry. It's okay. We're not robots. These bodies of ours are going to feel emotions. We just have to know that we cannot allow ourselves to get totally engulfed by these emotions, totally swallowed up by these emotions, to where the emotion now anchors itself and now it's the driving force of our life. We cannot let that happen, but we got to allow ourselves to feel emotions. Okay, so be patient. Okay, and be open to just new ways. I'm gonna tell you another story of sometimes your ancestor hopping maybe in a human body for a minute. I remember one time I went to the park with my son, and so that my son can play with his good friend, and I was friends with my son's good friend's father. Okay, so it was like a play date almost, right? So when I came to the park, the father was talking to an older gentleman, all right? And they was having a real good conversation. And when that older gentleman walked off, my son's friend's father was almost on the verge of tears because he said that man sounded just like my grandfather. I mean, just like him, his mannerisms, what he was saying, how he was saying it. It was almost like I was talking to my grandfather. And I said, brother, that was your grandfather. Your grandfather was speaking to you in that moment through that gentleman for that moment in time. That's your grandfather letting you know he's still here, having a nice, good word with you. So don't take these things lightly, okay? When you see these different serendipities and these different things happen that are reminding you about your dearly departed, okay? They are real. This is your ancestor, your dearly departed, letting you know that they are here. Not in the same form that you know them, but they are here. No need to fret. Just adjust to a new and different relationship. Live your life in a way that you know would bring honor to them. Live your life in a way that you know would make them happy. Know that they are supporting you on the spiritual side of life. Okay? So, just some different ways to think about transition because, again, would your loved one want you to just be in sadness? Okay? Thank you for tapping in. I love you. All right, we're dealing with a tough emotional topic today, but it had to be dealt with. All right? And I'll be back with more. Take care. Peace.